Have you ever noticed that earning your first $10,000 feels like dragging a boulder up Mount Everest, but then somehow the next $20,000 shows up faster than you ever imagined? Let me tell you something that's going to completely shatter the way you think about money and freedom. Because what happens after you hit $30,000 isn't just a milestone. It's a psychological shift so powerful that most people never recover from it because they never experience it. See, most people think building wealth is this slow, predictable step-by-step grind. Save $1, get $1 closer to your goals. Hit 10 grand, you're 10% of the way to 100. Simple math, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. That kind of thinking is exactly why so many people spend their lives sprinting on the hamster wheel of survival, working harder, earning more, and somehow still feeling broke. My name's Nick, and I've spent an embarrassing number of hours dissecting the psychology of money. Why some people quietly build freedom while everyone else keeps chasing it. If you're the kind of person who actually wants to understand how wealth is really built, not just hope that someday it works out, then stay with me because this next part will mess with your head. Here's what no one tells you. That $30,000 mark, it's not just a little more security. It's the line between survival and leverage. It's the moment when money stops being something you earn and becomes something that works for you. The rules change. Safety turns into systems. Protection turns into power. And your entire relationship with wealth quietly rewires itself. At $5,000, you're still living in survival mode, checking your bank app like it's a horror movie. Every unexpected expense feels like a threat. At $10,000, the fear loosens its grip. You can breathe again. You've built a small wall between yourself and chaos. That's your safety milestone. At $20,000, you enter strategy mode. You start thinking beyond bills and survival. You can quit that toxic job if you need to. You can plan. You're starting to see a future. But $30,000? That's where everything transforms. That's when the physics of money start to bend in your favor. Compound interest stops being theory. It becomes real. Every dollar you own begins to act like a little soldier. Some stand guard in your emergency fund, others go out to fight for you in investments, and a few explore new territories that could change your entire financial trajectory. This isn't fantasy. Behavioral economists have a name for it. The shift from scarcity to abundance mindset. It's when your brain stops asking, "Can I afford this?" and starts asking, "Is this the best use of my money to create more money, more freedom, more leverage?" Because when you have $5,000, every $100 feels like a decision that could break you. When you have $20,000, it still stings, but at $30,000, your psychology flips. You're no longer reacting to life, you're designing it. You stop hoarding dollars for safety and start deploying them for power. And here's the punchline. Most people never make it this far because they keep chasing comfort instead of control. They think $30,000 means buying nicer things, taking better vacations, or upgrading their lifestyle. But those who understand the game know the truth. $30,000 isn't about spending more. It's about finally realizing that money was never the goal. Freedom was. And the moment you hit that threshold, the real game begins. Or relocate to a more costly apartment. Yes, you could do such things, but that would be thinking like a wealthy person rather than one who accumulates wealth. Those who comprehend the 30,000 rule have a distinct perspective. They believe that this milestone will allow them to switch from playing defense to offense. They might begin placing their money to generate even more money rather than only safeguarding what they already have. They are now able to take measured risks that were previously unattainable. Without actively participating, they might begin creating revenue-generating systems. You can access investment opportunities at $30,000 that were previously unavailable or impractical. Diversification among various asset classes is possible. You can contribute sizable sums to retirement funds that will grow over many years. You can significantly raise your earning potential by investing in yourself through education or skill development. You can even begin looking into side projects or business prospects knowing that failure won't devastate your finances. This is where the wealth builders truly stand out from the rest, though. When you reach $30,000, You begin to consider systems rather than objectives. You start creating automated systems that invest and save money without your conscious awareness, rather than merely attempting to save more. You start making investments in assets, connections, and abilities that bring in money on their own rather than merely trying to increase your income. I refer to this as the freedom flywheel. You have enough money at $30,000 to purchase time, which you can use to hone your talents and earn more money, which you can then use to purchase even more time and improve your skills. Since most people never get to this crucial point, the entire system begins to feed on itself and accelerate in ways that they never feel. The worst part is still to come. The majority of people stop just short of this metamorphosis. They believe they've succeeded when they reach 20 or 25,000. They become at ease. They quit taking chances, learning new things, and challenging themselves to advance. They plateau just before the most thrilling phase of their wealth-building adventure starts because comfort stifles ambition. The $30,000 rule has nothing to do with extravagance. Leverage is the key. It's about building a life in which freedom, time, and choice add up more quickly than money ever could. It's about becoming someone who has money working for them instead of someone who works for money. And everything regarding your financial future changes forever once you comprehend this idea. Let me tell you something that most financial experts will not acknowledge. They enjoy discussing that enchanted $100,000 milestone, but they fail to see the true significance of it. Because this is what truly occurs at $30,000 that no one discusses. Not only do you make more money, you get something far more worthwhile. You get the capacity to refuse. Recall your most recent interview for a job. You would have most likely accepted whatever they had to offer if you had $300 in your bank account, wouldn't you? Perhaps even express gratitude for the chance. However, something changes when you're sitting on $30,000. You begin to ask various inquiries. What room is there for growth here? What is the culture of the company? Do I really want to be around these folks 40 hours a week? You're no longer in a desperate situation. Desperation is also costly. I refer to this as the no power. In personal finance, it is the most underappreciated superpower. And at the 30,000 point, it really gets going. You have the ability to refuse the controlling boss that has been ruining your life. You have the option to decline that lucrative side gig that makes you want to throw away your laptop. You have the ability to turn down possibilities that seem wonderful on paper but feel wrong in your gut, relationships that drain your energy, and investments that seem dubious. This is where things start to become very interesting, though. Saying yes to the proper things becomes a lot easier once you have the ability to say no. It's similar to having a superpower that reverses itself. The likelihood that you will find something worth staying for increases with the amount of money you can afford to leave. You start making what I refer to as strategic decisions rather than survival ones after you reach $30,000. You're not frantically phoning everyone you know to borrow money or charging 20% interest on a credit card when your car breaks down. You quietly consider your choices. Repair or replace this vehicle. What makes the greatest long-term financial sense if you replace it? Instead of thinking like someone who is drowning, you are thinking like an investment. And here's a strange event that occurs that no one tells you about. Your family and friends begin to regard you differently. Not necessarily superior or inferior, but unquestionably different. It's flattering when someone asks you for financial guidance, but you'll learn they want the results without putting in any effort. People around you may become a little strange regarding money, like they're resentful of your circumstances or ashamed of their own. Here's what I would advise. Avoid becoming someone who is constantly talking about money, but equally avoid acting broke to appease others. You put a lot of effort into reaching this goal, and the abilities you acquired along the way are precisely what you need to continue improving. Speaking of growing, let's discuss something most people do not understand at this point. They mistakenly believe that 30,000 is their beginning line rather than their finish line. They eventually relax because they feel safe. They quit taking measured risks, learning about money, and try to improve their circumstances. The plateau trap is where prudent savers end up losing their money. Those that overcome this plateau are aware of something very important. 30,000 has nothing to do with getting someplace. It all boils down to setting yourself up for success. It is comparable to arriving at Mount Everest Base Camp. Even though you haven't reached the summit yet, you are now in a position to try your hardest. At this point, you begin to think in terms of systems rather than objectives. You create automated systems that invest and save money without your conscious awareness, as opposed to merely attempting to save more. Whether you're working, sleeping, or binge-watching Netflix, you start building relationships, abilities, and assets that generate income rather than merely wishing to get more money. This is the ideal illustration. Purchasing a $1,000 course on web design or digital marketing seemed unaffordable when you had $10,000. It felt dangerous when you had $20,000. However, you begin to ask new questions at $30,000. Will I be able to make more than $1,000 extra with this skill? It is no longer an expense if the response is yes. It costs money. The difference between those who create riches and those who merely amass it is this change of perspective. Because they fear losing their money, people who accumulate hoard it. Wealth builders know that losing money isn't the largest danger. Therefore, they properly allocate their funds. The greatest danger is missing up on opportunities. You may begin to take advantage of opportunities that most people cannot even notice, much less afford, around $30,000. Investing in a friend's company that you support could be one way. Relocating to a city with more job opportunities could be the solution. Perhaps it's leaving your current position to launch the company you've been discussing for years. Perhaps returning to school or earning a qualification that may double your salary is the answer. The important thing is that you're no longer acting in desperation when making these choices. You're using your strength to make them. Additionally, choices based on strength typically turn out much better than those based on fear. However, this is the portion that truly astounds folks. When you reach $30,000, your perspective on money drastically shifts. You begin to view dollars as employees rather than as something to spend or save. Some of your dollar employees guard against unforeseen issues by working in your emergency fund. In addition to working in your investment accounts, other dollar employees go out into the world to find additional dollars to join your team. There's more to this than a clever metaphor. This is the actual way that wealthy people view money. Every dollar ought to have a purpose and be striving to improve, simplify, or increase your level of freedom. Spending money haphazardly becomes strange when you adopt this mindset, much as sending your staff home early without cause. Here's something that most people are totally unprepared for that occurs at $30,000. You begin to value time over money, not in a philosophical sense, but rather in a useful mathematical sense. It no longer makes sense to spend 2 hours looking into the lowest option in order to save $20 if your work pays $50 per hour. That is less valuable than your time. Although it may seem apparent, most people never adopt this perspective. Not realizing they could have made more money in the same amount of time and yet come out ahead, they will spend hours looking for the greatest price on something that costs $50. At $30,000, you begin to prioritize convenience and time over just getting the best deal. Having extra money to invest isn't the only thing that makes the investing opportunities available at $30,000. Their focus is on having sufficient funds to engage in significant positions across several asset classes. You can invest $5,000 in index funds, $5,000 in retirement accounts, and $5,000 in equities that you trust, and still have $15,000 left over for opportunities and emergencies. Spreading risk isn't the only goal of this diversification. The goal is to spread knowledge. You begin to pay attention to business news in a different way when you own equities. You begin to comprehend tax techniques when you make contributions to retirement plans. Even if you continue to work a day job, you begin to think like an entrepreneur when you have several sources of revenue. Over time, all of this knowledge builds up, improving your spotting opportunities, avoiding mistakes, and maximizing the money you already have. The person who reaches $30,000 isn't just wealthier than they were before. They're smarter, more confident, and more strategic about everything related to money and career and life choices. But here's the thing that makes all of this possible in the first place. Reaching $30,000 proves to yourself that you can delay gratification on a meaningful scale. You've demonstrated that you can consistently choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure. You've shown that you can stick to a plan even when it's boring or difficult, or when everyone around you is spending money you're choosing to save. This self-trust is incredibly powerful, and it extends far beyond money. When you know you can save $30,000, you start believing you can achieve other difficult goals, too. Maybe you can get in shape. Maybe you can learn a new skill. Maybe you can start that business or write that book or move to that city you've always dreamed about. The confidence that comes from hitting this milestone creates what psychologists call a positive feedback loop. Success breeds confidence, which leads to better decisions, which creates more success. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, gaining momentum and size with every turn. And the beautiful thing is, once this momentum kicks in, it becomes almost impossible to stop. The habits and mindset that got you to 30,000 are the same habits and mindset that will get you to H100,000, then to a million, then to whatever level of wealth and freedom you decide you want to achieve. The hardest part about reaching $30,000 isn't the saving itself. It's resisting the urge to immediately blow it on something that makes you feel rich instead of something that makes you actually wealthy. And trust me, the temptation is real. Your brain starts whispering sweet little lies like, you deserve that new car, or you've earned a vacation to Europe, or maybe it's time to finally get that kitchen renovation. Here's the thing. Your brain doesn't tell you in those moments. Every dollar you spend trying to look wealthy is a dollar that can't work to make you actually wealthy. And at $30,000, those dollars are finally ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean. Your friend Sarah hits $30,000 and immediately puts 20 of it toward a down payment on a luxury car. Now, she's got a shiny BMW in the driveway and monthly payments that eat up half her disposable income. Meanwhile, your friend Jake hits $30,000 and puts 20 of it into a diversified investment portfolio. 5 years later, Sarah's car is worth maybe $12,000, while Jake's investments are worth over $35,000. Same starting point, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't intelligence or luck. It's understanding that $30,000 isn't about what you can buy today. It's about what you can build for tomorrow. And here's where most people completely lose the plot. They think building wealth means living like a hermit, eating ramen noodles, and never enjoying anything. That's not wealth building. That's self-punishment with a savings account. The real secret is learning to spend money on things that pay you back, either in dollars or in time or in opportunities. At $30,000, you can start making investments that seemed impossible before. Maybe you spend $3,000 on a professional certification that doubles your hourly rate. Maybe you invest $5,000 in a friend's food truck that pays you back $200 a month for the next 10 years. Maybe you put $10,000 into index funds and forget about it for the next 2 decades. The point is, $30,000 isn't your destination. It's your launching pad. It's the moment when you stop being someone who saves money and start being someone who builds wealth. It's when you realize that the real game isn't about accumulating dollars in a bank account. The real game is about creating systems that generate freedom, opportunities, and choices that most people can't even imagine. So, if you're sitting there with $15,000 or $20,000 thinking you're almost done, think again. The most exciting part of your financial journey is just getting started. And if you're nowhere near $30,000 yet, don't get discouraged. Every dollar you save is a vote for the person you're becoming, not just the bank balance you're building. The $30,000 rule isn't about the money. It's about the transformation. And once you experience that transformation, there's no going back to thinking small about what's possible for your life.